Hello, my friend. I am glad you're here again, taking this time to listen and reflect. Let us begin by slowing down together. Take a deep breath in and a slow breath out. Let the tension soften. Let your thoughts settle. This is your moment. Today's question is one that invites us to look back, not only at our fears, but at the way they have shaped us. The question is this: what is something you once feared, but now feel grateful for? Fear is a powerful feeling. It makes our hearts race, our minds spin, and sometimes it stops us from moving forward. When we are inside fear, it feels heavy and endless. But often, when time passes, we see fear differently. We see how it pushed us to grow, to change, to discover something we did not expect. Sometimes, the very thing we feared most becomes the very thing we are most thankful for. Think about your own life. What comes to mind? Maybe you once feared moving to a new place. The thought of leaving your home, your friends, and your comfort was frightening. But later, you discovered new people, new experiences, and a new version of yourself. The fear was real, but so was the gift that followed. Or perhaps you feared starting something difficult, a job, a class, a responsibility. You were afraid you would fail, afraid you were not ready. But by facing it, you grew stronger, wiser, more confident. Now, when you look back, you do not only remember the fear, you also remember the gratitude for what it taught you. Let me share a story. There was once a boy who feared speaking in front of others. Every time he stood up in class, his hands shook, his voice trembled, and he wished only to disappear. Years later, his work required him to speak often, to say, "Wam nan nari," to share ideas, to guide, to explain. At first the fear returned, but slowly, step by step, he grew more comfortable. In time, he realized that the thing he once feared had given him one of the most valuable skills of his life. He was no longer afraid. He was grateful. Fear often hides lessons. It tells us what we are not yet ready for, but also what we might need to face. And when we face it, we sometimes discover that the fear was a doorway to something new. Now pause for a moment. Think of yourself. What is something you once feared, but now you can say, "I am grateful for it"? Was it change? Was it loss? Was it responsibility, or love, or letting go of something familiar? Fear has many faces. Sometimes it is loud and obvious, like standing on a stage or moving to a new country. Other times it is quiet and hidden, living in the background of our lives. We might not even name it as fear until much later. Think about the fear of endings, the end of school, the end of a relationship, the end of a season of life. At the time, endings feel painful. They take away what is familiar and safe. But later, when we look back, we see that endings also make space for beginnings. Without them, we could not have stepped into what came next. Gratitude often hides behind the doorway of an ending. There is also the fear of failure. Many of us know this fear well. It tells us not to try, not to risk, not to step forward. And yet, when we finally face it, when we fall, learn, and rise again, we discover strength we didn't know we had. Later, we look back at our failures with a surprising sense of gratitude. They taught us resilience, humility, and courage. Let me give you another story. A woman once shared that she had always feared being alone. She filled her days with people, noise, and distractions to avoid silence. Then life changed. She moved to a new city where she knew no one. At first, she felt lost and frightened, but over time she learned to sit with herself. She began to enjoy her own company, to read, to walk, to reflect. What she once feared became a source of strength. She said, "Now I am grateful for those quiet days, because they taught me who I am." This is how fear works. It feels like a wall, but often it is only a door. When we walk through it, we see life differently. What once seemed impossible becomes part of our story, and in time, part of our gratitude. So think again, my friend. Look back at your life, not with judgment, but with kindness. Where were the fears that later became gifts? Was it the fear of change, the fear of trying something new, the fear of letting go? What did you find on the other side? When we look back on fear, we often realize that it was not the end of the story. It was the beginning. Fear showed us where we were fragile and where we could grow. It made us uncomfortable, yes, but it also pointed us toward transformation. Think of the fear of change, moving to a new place, starting a new job, meeting new people. At the time, your stomach turned, your mind resisted, but later you may have discovered friendships you would never trade, opportunities you never imagined, and a stronger version of yourself. Gratitude came only after the fear was faced, or the fear of loss, losing something or someone you loved deeply. The pain was real, heavy, and sharp, and yet, even there, gratitude can emerge. Gratitude for the time you did have, for the memories that remain, for the lessons of love and impermanence. Sometimes what we fear most also teaches us what matters most. Another kind of fear is simply the fear of not being enough, of not being good enough, strong enough, ready enough. That fear whispers to so many of us, but by living through it, we discover that we are capable of more than we imagined, and gratitude grows. Not for the fear itself, but for the strength it helped us uncover. Let me leave you with one last image. Imagine your fears as stones lying on a path. At first, they block the way, heavy and intimidating. But when you take a step forward, you see that each stone is also a stepping stone. One by one, they lead you forward, carrying you to places you never thought you could reach. Later, when you look back, you don't only see the stones, you see the path they created. So the question remains, what is something you once feared, but now feel grateful for? The answer will be different for each of us, but the reflection is the same. Fear can hide our greatest gifts, and when we look back, we often find gratitude waiting there, quietly, where fear once stood. My friend, we have traveled together through this reflection, and now it is time to return once more to the question, what is something you once feared, but now feel grateful for? We have seen that fear is not always an enemy. It is often a teacher in disguise. What once felt impossible, painful, or overwhelming later became a source of strength, wisdom, or love. Fear may have shaken us, but it also shaped us. The lesson is clear. Behind many of our fears lies hidden gratitude. Gratitude for growth, gratitude for change, gratitude for discovering that we are more capable, more resilient, and more alive than we believed. So I ask you, before you go, What is something you once feared but now feel grateful for? Share your story in the comments. Your words may remind someone else that fear is not the end of the journey. It is part of the path. Thank you for being here today, for giving yourself this moment of reflection. Stay strong, stay curious, and stay kind. And if this question spoke to you, continue your journey with us here on Yarven's Questions. More reflections, more stories, and more gentle questions are waiting for you. Take care, my friend. Until next time.